What is up, my Limitless Minds family? It is your favorite celesbian, Coach Joe, up in the house on Transformational Tuesday. And I am so excited to bring in my friend, my colleague, Mike Lewis, to have a conversation with me on the Women's World Cup. Yes.
Hey, what's going on, Joe? Good to see you again.
Mike, I talked to you before the call about my need to stay neutral today because of an infestation of flying termites in my house that you've helped me to learn that they are termites. So I need the audience to know that not only do we talk about these tools and techniques, we're also implementing them
Yes,
into our lives on a daily basis. So I'm trying to
absolutely.
stay neutral today through a stressful situation, Mike.
Ain't no trying. If I was correct, the termites. So right now you've got some solace in knowing at least what your problem is, and now you can
Yeah, that's true. I've
try to.
identified the problem. I've called Pests Now. They're going to come out tomorrow between 10 and 12. So the next right steps have been accomplished. And now it's just being a killing machine today as I walk through my house. But
Yeah,
how is your Transformational Tuesday going, Mike?
it's going well. It's going
Good.
well. I've had a couple of great meetings and sessions this morning that have kind of set the tone and the energy for our time today. So yeah, it's
Love
been
it.
great. Been great.
So we talked about what we wanted to dive into today. And we thought since we are at the later stages of the Women's World Cup, we are actually live right now in between the two World Cup semifinals. So
Right.
Spain beat Sweden this morning 2-1. And tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Eastern time, we have the host nation, the Matildas,
Matilda.
Australia versus what the country that considers themselves to be the inventor of soccer, the English, the British national team. So I'm I'm very excited for tomorrow's match at 6 a.m.
Yes.
Can't guarantee I'll wake up for it, but I'm very excited for it. What are you looking forward to, Mike?
I am looking forward to. I have just so obviously I'm a U.S. citizen, right? So I'm partial to the U.S., but we're out of it now. But it's easy for me to kind of hop on the bandwagon of a team that's gone through a transformation.
Yeah.
A lot of the teams absolutely have, right? But when you get to this late in the into the into the cup, and you're able to start kind of really understanding some of the transformational things that these teams have gone through. I mean, it's really, really amazing. So, like I said to you earlier, right, I kind of got hooked in and roped into all of the things that Matilda Mania means to all the folks in Australia. But, from a performance standpoint, I mean, there's just been these gems that just keep getting dropped all the time. I think the last one that I heard was when Coach Gustafson someone asked him about, do you feel pressure, playing that you're playing at home, et cetera, et cetera. He's like, no, we see pressure as a privilege, right? How many times do we say that in the performance world, right?
Yes.
Pressure is a privilege. So when you see someone at that level really acknowledging it and acknowledging that his players also see it really as a privilege, I mean, it's just phenomenal. But how about you? What are you looking forward to?
That just gave me chills, Mike, and I'm writing that down. Pressure is a privilege because it truly is. And you're speaking of the transformation from a team perspective, but also globally, the game of women's soccer has grown exponentially.
Hmm.
And to see the transformation from, the US started their national team in 1985. The first, women's World Cup was 1991. They weren't even able to call it the World Cup. FIFA didn't allow them to call it the World Cup. It was called the M&M's Cup, Mike. So now to see the essentially the highest grossing, most watched World Cup in history. We're breaking records on a daily, Mike.
Hmm.
We have looks like 1.7 million tickets sold for this World Cup. China's game produced the highest audience for a single match anywhere in the world. And then traffic on FIFA's digital platform in the first 15 days has already surpassed all of 2019 Women's World Cup.
Mm.
So, these are just three statistics. I could litter this live with more statistics in terms of the amount of people who are watching, the amount of people who are attending games in Australia and New Zealand.
Hmm.
These two countries are infatuated with the game.
Hmm.
And the country of Australia are just in love with their Matildas.
Right.
And I think when you see the transformation of a team along with the sports running parallel, it's so magical.
Oh, that's the word. It's magical.
Yeah, it's so magical. And the Matildas last game, let me see here. I think it had 75,000 people in the stadium. 75,784. It was the standalone most watched women's football match. And I'm sure about the game being sold out tomorrow morning. So it's going to be a packed stadium. It's going to be electric. Australia has one of the best players in the globe of Sam Kerr. I don't remember who it was. Someone in Australia who's high up in the government is already talking about declaring a holiday if the women's team wins the World Cup. So
wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. You know, as a former player, it's just been tantalizing to be able to watch this World Cup.
Yeah. So yeah, speak to it from a former player's perspective, right? So when you think about your experiences playing, right, are there any parallels to any transformations that you've been through that you can see kind of happening either within the FIFA Women's World Cup, Australia, England, any of the teams? What parallels can you draw from your experience?
Yeah, it's like, where do I even start, right? There's been so many. And first thing that comes to mind for me is that, in 2019, the Women's World Cup had 24 teams. Now we have 32. So we have an expansion. And a team from every federation essentially. So there's regions of the globe in which you qualify for the World Cup. A team in every single confederation has won a game in this World Cup, which has not happened before. Wow. So you have teams in Africa, you have teams in Asia and Oceania, South America, who are just getting better and better. And the fact that the U.S. lost in the round of 16, that was historic. And I say that without shedding a tear in this live, because you have seen the women's national team fight tooth and nail for equity, equality, equal pay. And now to see that, be on the global stage where not necessarily you have equity between the men's and the women's teams, but you're getting closer and closer. So you have better athletes, you have better resources for the women's games, you have more people in the stands. It's been revolutionary for me, knowing that I played in a generation where I made about $15,000 a year, Mike, playing professional soccer, that these women can genuinely make a living playing all over the world for teams in England, teams in Spain, teams in the US, and be able to reach their potential. Because at Limitless Minds, that's what we're all about, is creating high performers. And we're finally getting to see these high performers in women's soccer.
Yeah, absolutely. At the beginning, when we kind of first started chatting about this, you used 3 words, right? Inspire, unite, and ignite. And I can't think of 3 better words to really explain or to describe kind of what's been going on throughout this entire World Cup. But, specifically coming up with this game tomorrow between Australia and England, the inspiration piece, right? Just from a national cultural movement of Matilda Mania.
Yeah.
Just everyone being inspired by the fact that, not only is it's Australian, but there's so many members on that team that also represent other cultures and the women of color. They, a lot of them have, I saw some statistic, or not statistic, something that they actually have delayed AFL games. Countries can watch the Matilda play. I mean, it's just awesome. So when you have these different little things going on that inspire, an entire country to really rally around its athletes and its players, I mean, it just ignites just a huge amount of pride. The winning is really, I think, the igniting part of it.
Yeah.
But, what about you? What would you see as being, inspirational, aside from some of the things that you've mentioned already? But are there any things that have inspired you, certain plays or certain things that have happened during some of the matches?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the inspiration piece for me are the human stories of the athletes who are actually involved in this World Cup. I'll give an example. Morocco had the first ever player to wear a hijab in the Women's World Cup, right? So
Mhm.
stories like this, where it goes outside of the field, where we get to know these people as outside of their performance.
Mhm.
And I think that's what the globe falls in love with, are these human stories along with the winning. The winning is such an important piece.
Mhm.
And, these teams from Africa who have, we had 3 African nations who advanced to the round of 16.
Mhm.
And Mike, like having friends who've played for African nations, the resources there are not what the US gets,
Right.
right? They are
Right.
still far behind in terms of what they invest in their women's program. So to see that achievement, and I want to add Jamaica into that, they
Mhm.
had a GoFundMe in order to
Right.
actually like pay for some of their
Right.
expenses here at the World Cup. These are
Right.
countries that are surviving, thriving on, pennies
Mhm.
for their federation's budgets.
Mhm.
And FIFA awarded every single player that made a World Cup roster $30,000 for that. The average salary for a women's female professional soccer player is $14,000 in the world, Mike. So
Wow.
this is life changing, right? Like we're talking about lives transforming
Yes.
of these women who are, in one lump are getting paid what in 2 years what their salary may be.
Right.
So I love this because I know, again, it's a ripple in that's going to become a tsunami.
Mhm.
And to have seen the transformation so far, I'm just so excited about what's ahead.
I agree. So some of the points that I had kind of jotted down in terms of the transformational piece, specifically with the Matildas, right? So years ago, I think when they first started kind of playing together and being competitive, they were stitching their own logos right
Mhm,
onto their
mhm.
jerseys, and then they did like bake sales to raise funds and money. 2015 they had a strike.
Yeah.
Fast forward all the way to the point to they were actually fighting for parity in pay with men, and then being able to actually achieve that. It's just phenomenal. I mean, it speaks to the point of transformation. It's a long-term thing, right?
Yeah.
It isn't one day you just all of a sudden have transformed into who you decided you wanted to become. But there's different benchmarks along the way that create validation for you, or for
Yeah.
teammates, or for your program, or for your country, that allows you to continually transform. And that transformation will continue
Yeah.
beyond tomorrow's game as well. I think the other thing that really struck me too about the the Australian team is I think there's maybe like 5 or 6 girls, and this is probably on a lot of the other teams as well, that have been playing together since juniors.
Mm. Mhm.
So you have this chemistry, this camaraderie amongst 4 or 5 players on the team that begins to probably be infectious, throughout the entire team as well. Um, but there was one other point that they had talked about with the team. I'm drawing a blank on it right now.
Yeah, no worries.
But from your standpoint too, I mean, how do you think, how would you anticipate more transformation, taking place either within FIFA women's soccer, the Matildas, the Lionesses, the U.S. team?
Yeah.
Where do you see transformation continuing to move forward?
I love, what Dan threw in the chat, that it was illegal for women to play professional soccer in the UK from 1921 to 1970. And this is a team that's currently going to be in the Women's World Cup final. It was illegal for them to play soccer until 1970.
Unbelievable.
So 3 years later, and they find themselves in the Women's World Cup final, not to mention they're European champions. And honestly, that's a fast time to change, right? And
Mhm.
I think because England and the UK really are, their culture is the game of football. So they're born, bred, and really eat soccer for breakfast.
Right.
It's spectacular to see how much the game has grown, and that really, I think, proves the potential, not just on the field, but off the field, in terms of the game growing and its ability to be profitable, its ability to transfix the world during the Women's World Cup.
Mhm.
And I'm truly excited to watch this game tomorrow because you have some of the best players on the globe And Sam Kerr in Australia, we spoke of. You have Kira Walsh on the English team. You have the English coach who is also a transformational coach who's been so successful. So I think you're going to have a very competitive match. And that's what you want to see.
Right.
I think as a soccer fan, as a sports fan, you want to see competitive matches. And I think that's what's been the difference in this Women's World Cup is that any team can win on any given day.
Right. If
you look at Australia's journey to this semifinal, man, they were life or death in that Canadian game in the group stages. I thought they were going to be out of the tournament. I was already, shedding tears for the Matildas because you don't ever want to see the host nation go out of a World Cup in the group stage. And then they pulled it out without Sam Kerr, right? Her out with injury, with her calf injury. And then they go on to make it to the semis, and they have that epic, 20 PK, 10 round PK shootout in their last game against France. And it's just, I think everyone has been on the edge of their seat. It's been an emotional roller coaster, which is what the beauty of sport.
Yes. Actually, I just remember the other thought I had. So what's interesting also, and this happens probably on every major team, you just don't hear it often.
Yeah.
We talk sometimes about long-term athlete development, right? And this idea that, becoming a great athlete is this transformational process, right? It doesn't, not everybody's going to be the Serena Williams, the Tiger Woods, where they just literally stuck to one sport from the time they were 2 or 3 or 4, all the way up until adulthood. So what you see with the Australian team is a lot of these athletes also have played cricket, have played Australian football, have played, just a myriad of different other sports that have allowed them to also become really great, phenomenal athletes. Oh, and by the way, they also are great, phenomenal soccer players. So that idea of transforming just physically also, just in playing so many different sports and understanding your body and learning your body, becoming a great athlete is just, it's all right there. It's all right there. Yeah. It's just ready to be served up for everybody to understand and participate and really see, I think, a much broader picture of what sports can be, but really, especially just for women in general. We were talking, just before earlier, just the amount of flops, right, or less in women's soccer than in men's soccer, and that's just something that I can enjoy. It's playing the game the way you were taught to play, the way it should be played, with just fierce competitiveness.
Yeah,
it's just awesome.
I love it. And Dan also threw into the chat that the Matildas' first soccer uniforms were barred boys U15 uniforms, and you got your number from whichever jersey fit. Same with the women's national team. They were wearing hand-me-down men's jerseys until about, I think it was like into the 1990s when Nike finally became their sponsor. So to see the growth of the game, to see now these female athletes are absolute icons, Mike, not just even in soccer, even in sport, but I would say culturally they're icons. Sam Kerr is absolutely, I would say, an inspiration and a legend in the country of Australia. You're seeing dads and daughters walking along the streets with, the dad has a dyed beard, which is yellow and green. And they're just really getting into this World Cup, which would you absolutely love to see.
Yes.
Are you, will you be setting your alarm tomorrow, Mike, for 6 a.m. to watch the semifinal?
I will. I'm actually usually up.
Yes.
So I will tune in and watch. I'll probably listen more than I'll watch. But yes, I will be.
Mike, do you consider yourself a big soccer watcher?
I'm not a big soccer watcher.
Okay.
I really, soccer is one of the sports that I really enjoy watching live. Like, if I have the opportunity, luckily for me, I live very close to IMG, so I can pick up and watch a lot of sport at one time. But for me, watching a live game is what really does it for me. When I watch it on TV, I can watch, but I just enjoy the live space a whole lot more. When I lived in Atlanta, I used to go to the United games all the time. And they've just done like a phenomenal job of like creating engagement with the audience and with the folks there. It's just awesome. So for me, I'm like, it's just not the same. I've had such great experiences seeing it live Then
Hmm.
when I watch it on TV, it just doesn't add up. So I can't say I'm an avid soccer
Yeah.
follower, but when I have the opportunity to watch, a live game, then I do.
If you're watching it as a mindset coach, Mike, what do you look for when you watch the players on the field?
Oh boy, the first thing is probably just the attitude and what their response is to when things are not really kind of going their way. That's the first thing, because soccer is one of those where you can't hide, right?
Yeah.
You can watch someone's body language very clearly, right? So that's probably the first thing is I'm looking for the body language, and then I start to play this game in my head, right? See if I'm right, if my predictions are right in terms of people's body language.
Yeah.
Is it a powerful body language? Is it one that's they've realized they've made a mistake and now they've got to
Hmm.
recover from the mistake? Are
Hmm.
they going to the right next move or the right next play, or are they still trying to recover from the previous bad play?
Yeah.
So those are the things that I look for. And then obviously, we don't see too much of it, what goes on the bench. But when we do, yeah, I look
Yeah.
for those glimpses as well. What's the interaction between the teammates when they're coming back to the bench? Are they being coached up by the head coach, assistant coaches, et cetera? What does that look like? But for me, that's what it is. I start to play a game of prediction. Like, is my prediction right based upon what I'm seeing on someone's body language?
I
But
love that. It makes you have skin in the game almost, right? Because
yeah,
you're placing bets on certain players.
right, right.
Yeah, no, I love that you watch for each player's response, right? Response to adversity, to success, to a goal, to a mistake. When I watch a game live, I appreciate the technical skill that is involved in the game of soccer. I think that can be difficult to absorb when you watch it on television. And when you watch it live, you see how great these athletes are
Yes.
in terms of just their touch, their control, their vision.
Mhm.
And as a former player, that's something I appreciate because it takes hours and hours and hours and hours to reach that level of mastery.
Mhm.
And so I really enjoy watching that piece. And that has been something that has transformed in the women's game. I think the players are so much more technical. They're more athletic, they're faster, they're stronger, they have better vision.
Mhm.
And that is because they've had resources invested in them, or again, they can reach their potential. When you
Mhm.
have better sports science, you have better coaches, you have better fields, you have better competition. The rising tide raises all boats. So I think we're starting to see again, really the rewards of all of the work that these women of past generations have put into.
Mhm.
In each single athlete, you can see the difference.
Yes. Yeah.
And tomorrow, that is what's going to be on display for the world to see. And I'm thinking about if I was a player for Australia. You feel like the weight of of your country is on your shoulders. Like, how do you prep for what is the biggest game of your life, Mike? What would you be doing tonight? What would you be doing the night before the game?
Yeah. It's funny you say that because that's one of the other things that I had. I can't remember the player who said it, but they had asked in a conference, how was your preparation? Are you preparing different for this game than you are for
Hmm.
the other ones? And I think it was Carol Walsh who said it for England. Um, she was saying that no, our preparation doesn't change. Like,
Yeah.
we stick to the same preparation.
Mhm.
You don't, you get this far and then all of a sudden you make a shift in your preparation. That's what's allowed you to get to that piece, get to that space. Um, I am a big, big proponent of you can still always find things that you can do better
Yeah.
in your preparation, which translates to getting better or
Yeah.
performing better. It's not changing it, but if there's a part of your preparation that says, um, you know, you're doing dynamic stretching 30 minutes before. And maybe it's become so much part of your routine that the dynamic stretching isn't really, you kind of go through the motions of it. It's just part of your routine. It's part of your
Yeah.
preparation. But you understand, I can actually do my dynamic routine a lot better. If I
Hmm.
do it better, I'm
Hmm.
getting better. So that's I'm a big proponent
I
of
love that.
doing better to get better. Identify where you can do better, It doesn't mean you change your preparation. It doesn't mean you change your routine. It just means you do something better so that you can get better along the way.
Yeah. I really like that, doing better to get better, which I was doing a Peloton workout this morning, a little weight workout, and we were doing our bicep curls, and the coach said, put your attention on the muscle to create the tension, right? Because sometimes we can go through the motions and not realize what we're doing, what muscle we're supposed to be working. So what I'm hearing you say is put your attention on your dynamic warm up so you can build that tension in your body.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's powerful because again, like we're not talking about revolutionary changes, Mike. We're just talking about focus, attention, really investing in what we're doing in that moment, staying present, because that will allow us to reach high performance.
Absolutely.
My question, Mike, is like, how do you sleep like the night before a game like this, right? Like that was my problem, is that I got so excited that it was difficult for me to sleep before big games. But I think, again, having that routine, it doesn't change the night before a big game. You have your sleep routine, your dinner, right? Like you put your phone away, no blue light, you read, whatever you do to settle down to make sure you're getting that sleep.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good one too, right? Because I mean, gosh, at that level, you're playing across the world, right? Whether it's the World Cup or whether it's just your regular season. So you've already been challenged with time zone challenges, when the game starts as opposed to when the last game started, et cetera. So I would hope and I would think that there's probably a routine built into that where your excitement and your body is in such a preparation mode that it's difficult to sleep, but you find some ways to still rest.
Yeah.
And maybe it's you're having a hard time sleeping, but you find some ways to, do some mental techniques, really hone in on your visualization, hone in on your breathing, right? Those are still all opportunities for you to still be able to prepare and be able to execute and play as best as you can. But the sleep one, that's a difficult one. Right? We know how important the sleep is.
Yes.
It's an absolute, like, fundamental necessity that we need, or that anyone needs, especially playing at that level. But what if you can't sleep? Then we got to have another plan in place to make up for that. So
I love it. Okay, Mike, who you got for tomorrow? Who do you think's going to win this game?
I'm going with the Matildas.
Okay, score?
I'm going to go 3-1.
Yes. Okay, I will go Matildas 2-1.
2-1.
And we will check back in tomorrow. You have Ellie and Matt.
Yes.
And enjoy the game, Mike. Women's World Cup semifinal. Let's do this. Thanks for joining us today. Transformational Tuesdays.
Good seeing you, Joe.
Everybody, good to see you, Mike.
Take care.